I too want you to be successful. I wake up every day wanting our nation to be successful in every endeavor, and I think I've shown to this administration my desire to work towards common ground and to try to solve problems. So I want these negotiations to be successful. I think our concerns are, and I had one of the most impactful meetings along with a number of people here on the committee in Israel just in the last couple of days. But I think the concerns are, as you look back over the history over the last 10 years that some people have alluded to, Iran has stayed here and the P5 began here. And as these negotiations have progressed, what's happened is the P5 and us being the major driving force have continued to move towards their position. And I would just argue that, again, having Congress as a backstop as you enter these final steps, having Congress as a backstop, someone that you do in fact not only have to consult with, but you have to seek their approval, would be somewhat of an anchor to keep us from continuing to move towards their position. And I think it would be very difficult for you to say that there hasn't been a continual movement towards their position. I mean, you look at where we began with the UN security resolutions, you look at where we began with us potentially agreeing to them having enough centrifuges to serve their, quote, practical needs, which, as I understand it, every scientist has said was about 500 centrifuges, and I think you would tell me today we've moved way beyond that. So I would just say to you, Congress can be an excellent backstop to you as you're moving down the road. I thought Senator Kaine probably expressed it better than any of us here. When we entered into these agreements that Senator Menendez was so much a part of, meaning these sanctions, I don't think anyone in giving you the national security waivers ever thought the President was going to suspend them in all likelihood until the end of his term. I don't think anybody ever thought that. So the fact that we know that if you do that, the entire sanctions regime falls apart, and I have tremendous respect for Secretary Cohen. The fact is, these take a long time to put together. And so, again, to have to come to us on the front end of a deal before you've dismantled the entire regime, to me, is an incredibly important step that I hope you will consult with us on. We've laid out a proposal. We hope you'll consult, and we hope we'll come to an agreement that takes into account some of the nuance that you pointed out early that you'd like for us to discuss. But just stiff-arming and saying after the role that we have played to basically put the international community at the table just to stiff-arm, say, no, we really don't want you to play a role, we want you just to trust us, is totally unacceptable from my standpoint. So look, the Supreme Leader, we keep referring to him, and apparently as we negotiate, we seem to be more concerned about the Supreme Leader's position than anyone else's. So I just want to lay out one thing. The Supreme Leader has said publicly that one of his major concerns is that Iran enters into an agreement and somehow over time Congress changes its mind. We have a presidential race that's coming up. I assure you that the Iran component will be a major part of the next presidential race. I believe that to be the case. And so since there's so much concern about the Supreme Leader and him walking away or doing whatever, I would just say that Congress's approval of a deal, to me, would be reassuring that whatever deal that you've done would stand the test of time. So I would encourage you to sit down, to walk through with us some of the concerns that you have about timing. But I would say that general movement today is towards Congress playing a role. I think, again, just stiff-arming doesn't take us to a place that probably meets the test that both of us need to meet, and I would encourage you again to sit down and talk with us.